Hey, what's happening, everyone? It's NXNES, and I'm here with Ableton, the latest version we have here. We're waiting on 12. I wanted to give you some shorts, some Ableton shorts. We are here to give you just sort of quick little bits of inspiration. What I don't want to do is get too technical. What I do want to do is get very theoretical. And so with that, I think we can start talking about how to sound design, which is my favorite part of any sort of recording or, post-production. And these shorts are going to be theory-forward examples of how to use your imagination to design the sounds that you want. Because what's important when recording is that you get the sounds that you want first, cleanly, before you mix them in with anything else or before you incorporate them in with anything else. I think it's very important to use your imagination as a means to sort of establish what sort of audio engineer you're going to be. So here we're gonna explore a very simple stock plugin for Ableton under the EQ and filters section called Auto Filter. Now, Auto Filter, you'll see we have the different filter types to sort of eliminate the frequencies that you want gone. And you can see that they have a different look to them each time you select them. What I want to show you here, though, is that you can prep your sound the way that you want to before you go into actually the EQ process. And so I think it's best to record things as cleanly as you can. But I also think that you have to treat things before you start to process them in the post-production. I just want to address this real quick. A lot of rules are thrown around on many other tutorials and sort of the research you'll do. But the idea, and I think the general consensus, is use your ears. And the idea is getting to where you want to be audio-wise from your imagination. But I would also add that we're not just going from the imagination and living within theory, but we're also using references that we enjoy, right? So we're listening to songs, we're listening to music, we're getting inspired by the way things are heard and the way that you hear things and filter them and would like them to be formatted in your way. So the Auto Filter is a very simple tool, but it's also a very powerful tool as well. First things first, I'm going to search my library for a drum loop. I tend to store a lot of drum loops. When I find them, when I cut them, when I create them, I tend to store a lot of loops. So I think for this drum loop example, I'm going to use a hi-hat loop, and we're going to duplicate it using Command D. So this hi-hat loop, which we're going to start with this up here, gets you looping this section between a start point and an end point. So for example, you can hear this hat loop, and I'm sure there are many ways when you're hearing the hat loop that you would want to design it so that it fit what you are specifically doing. But also with it being out of context and just by itself, you might even hear a way that you would like to hear it pre-mix. So for instance, there's a ton of high frequency on this, right? And as you can see here on the Auto Filter, I'm able to grab this frequency range and whatever filter type I'm using, I'm able to grab the filter and bring it down, right? But this idea of cutting out frequencies that you do not want before you start the EQ process is very important. Because without this Auto Filter, you can hear that this is very crunchy, very high end. Again, if this is how you want it to sound, that's fine as well. But you give it a lot more opportunity to sit better in the mix if you start to design it the way you'd like, right? Here we are moving the filter around with our low pass filter on it. But what we're actually manipulating here is the frequency and the resonance of the filter and of the entire frequency spectrum that this instrument is playing within. So where we have all the highs here, as we get higher, we start to filter them out, correct? But we can also use the resonance, which is sort of the raising and lowering of specific frequencies, to get somewhere like here. And maybe we kind of like where that's at, but we want just a little more sharpness on it. Well, we can start to resurrect some of the higher frequencies by just moving the resonance up in that one spot. right? We can even do a sweep. And there you go. That's how the low pass filter works. So for another example, I'm going to add this 4 on the floor pattern, duplicate it so that it fits within the loop that we're using. And you're going to hear the 4 on the floor without the hi-hat first. So we're going to solo the 4 on the floor. Here's what it sounds like just loaded up. Pretty big, taking up a lot of space. But see, coming over to these audio effects, EQ and filters, and then adding that auto filter again. As you can hear, like we did before, you can get rid of those high frequencies and really hone this kick in to where you believe it belongs, right? You can even get a little bit peaky there. But what I also challenge you to do is try it the other way, right? So here we are, just for reference, just so you understand what's happening here. We're cutting out so much of the low frequencies that you're just hearing the attack, the high-end attack of the kick. You're hearing what's essentially the mallet to the drum. But then we start realizing, as we pull it all the way back, we start realizing all the other frequencies within that kick. My personal favorite thing to do at this point is to assess how much of that sub, how much of that over the top low end do I want in this song, and how much do I want this drum to take up space. They say around 100 hertz is where you start getting where the drum is being struck at, and you can hear how this same drum, once the resonance is up a little bit and it's filtered out a lot of that low end, you can hear how this is just simply the drum. It's simply the drum itself, the skin of the drum, and the stick or mallet hitting the drum. Well, when you pull that back, you start reintroducing those low ends. Now you can come all the way down with the resonance and still maintain a little bit of both worlds, right? And start to expand into the lower world and grab all those delicious low tones. But you can also increase the resonance to make it about those low tones. Now, just to sort of challenge all these theories that we have, I'm going to take this auto filter, hold Option, and slide it to the side, right? Copy it, and I'm going to create another filter that's taking out the high end. This is a low pass filter. That's the filter type. And you can hear all this eliminated, right? Now what you're doing here is just establishing where you want this kick drum to sit. Again, before you start mixing anything, you want these sounds to be up to your standard. You want these sounds to sound exactly the way that you want them to sound. I encourage everyone to treat their recorded tracks in this way. So we have a lot of the punch that we want. Maybe there's too much of that. Maybe there's not enough. So in these shorts, I'm going to be showing you my theory basics on how I approach sound design. Hopefully these are helpful, and thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one.